This is the AT-OCT, a custom AT-OT I made using parts from two LEGO Star Wars AT-TE sets. The highly coveted 2009 AT-OT with dropship set is the only time LEGO has ever made the AT-OT. And because I'm not going to spend over $600 on this really old set, I decided to make my own. The AT-OCT, the All-Terrain Open Command Transport. Heavily inspired by the AT-OT, but it's pretty much a new walker at this point. The first and probably the easiest part of this alternate build to get done were all 8 of the legs. The AT-TE has 6, and the set already had some amazing builds, so I simply made and added on 2 more, and then I put this 1x3 tile at the top of the joint, and I pretty much called it a day. And now that we've covered all 8 legs on the bottom, we'll move front to back and we'll take a look at the head and the cockpit. We've got some very large windows on either side of the head, and then we have a front window that looks very similar to the AT-TE. On the side panels, I did try and make some illusion of a curve going up and down, because the AT-OT in universe has a very curved cockpit, but I couldn't really achieve that with these LEGO pieces, especially from the AT-TE. So I just used a number of wedge and angled plates to create some illusion of a curve going around the window. And both side panels are on some Technic pins, and those allow them to angle slightly inward to line up with this front face. And up on top of the cockpit, we have the roof that has some more wedge plates to angle in with these slightly angled side panels. And then we have a few stickers and then this small roof rack for a little bit of cargo carrying capability. But most importantly with the cockpit, how do we get inside? And we've got 2 ways of getting inside. Technically 3, but the third one isn't really advertised as a play feature. First and most simply, we're going to lift up on the roof and then bring it towards the rear. Next, I'm just going to put my fingers on the chin of the AT-OCT and then pull out, and then that'll remove the entire front window. And then from there, we can slightly move these side panels open, and then we can reach our fingers in here and position all our minifigures. But those are just the advertised ways that are actual play features that I built in on how to get inside the cockpit. There is an easier third option that gives you amazing access. And all we need to do is just grab on the side panels and pull up. And with that side panel removed, it becomes much easier to get in here and remove all your minifigures to position them how you want. And inside the cockpit, we have our driver up front with the gunner seated behind him and then the captain of the walker behind them. Both the driver and the gunner have 2 joysticks to control whatever they need to, but the gunner also has an extra control panel that comes down from the roof. Now there is unfortunately one small downside to the driver. His hands have to be directly out in front of him like this or down at his sides. If you put his hands on his knees, it can cause the side panels to not fold in as much, creating a small gap between the face and the side. As you can see on the left side, I have the hand in the correct position directly out in front of him, whereas on the right side, his hand is on his knee and creating a small gap. And behind both the driver and the gunner, we have the captain of the walker. And in his small little command area, he has a control panel on either side of him using those stickered control panels, and then there's also a third one mounted on the back side of the gunner seat. And lastly, inside the cockpit, I included this vented T-slope as a tiny little staircase for the gunner to step up to his seat. But besides that, we'll move beyond the commander's area and head into this small corridor that has 2 weapon clips, and then that will lead us into our trooper area. And exiting this very cramped hallway, we come into the trooper area, holding a grand total of 33 minifigures. There are 16 seats built in to seat your clone troopers, with plenty of aisle space that you can fill up with more of your own. I'm going to remove 1 or 2 of these minifigures so we can get a better look at what's hiding beneath them. And now we can get a much better look at all 16 of these seats, with 14 of them being in this front section here, and then 2 of them closer to the rear. But as mentioned and as you saw, you have plenty of aisle space to fill up with even more of your own minifigures. But even then, you could probably fit more if you organize the blasters of all your seated clones to make a little bit more space in front of them and in the aisles. But as far as advertising purposes go, I'm going to say that this alternate build can safely hold 36 minifigures. And smack dab in the middle of all these seats, we have the built-in carrying handle, which I gotta admit, it is in a little bit of an unfortunate position. But that was built in incredibly early on that by the time I got to finishing out the trooper area, it was way too late to move that around. But it gets the job done simply and effectively. As far as the outsides of the trooper bay, it's largely just tons of armor plating. There are 3 smaller uniform segments on the bottom protecting the top joints of the legs, and the front and back ends both have a tiny bit of sticker detailing with the Republic insignia on the front and a little bit of Republic red up top, with the back end having a few grill plates, some lights on the front, and then this larger sloping piece to extend the armor plating all the way to the back. And on the larger open section in the middle, I have these 2 smaller bits of armor plating that hang off the sides and help cover up some of the empty space beneath it. And moving just beyond those 2 builds, we get onto the final little bit of armor plating. And this section sits at a little bit of a funny angle. I'm going to warn you guys now, putting this section in and lining it up with this larger bit of armor plating in the instructions is going to be a little finicky. It sits in a very particular way, and I tried to use this larger slope brick in the middle to help it lodge between these 2 sections of armor plating to make it a slight bit easier. And this section has a tiny bit more sticker detailing, with the main attraction being the 2 rear-facing ball turrets. And just between those 2 turrets, we have one of my favorite play features of the entire alternate build, The elevator. And I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. Why an elevator? Why not a ramp? The 2009 AT-OT had a ramp, the actual AT-OT had a ramp. Just do a ramp. And that's a completely valid question with a very simple answer. I didn't want a ramp. And I know an elevator doesn't really make sense in combat, but the glory of LEGO is that we can build whatever we want, and there are plenty of leftover pieces if you want to build a ramp for yourself. But I wanted an elevator, so I got an elevator. But the elevator is fully functional. You can fold down the pad to let your troopers load up, then you can lift up on the locks and bring your troopers down into combat. And even if you have clone troopers with their blasters loaded up in all these seats nearest to the elevator function, it's still completely functional. And on the elevator itself, the maximum amount of clone troopers that I was able to fit was 9. So with 33 clones in our trooper area, it's going to take about 3.5 trips of this elevator going up and down to get everybody out. And again, I do know that this elevator isn't practical, but I just really love that I was able to build this and made it fully functional as well. And the elevator itself doesn't really have much detail. I used those 1x2 rails to cover up the gap between the pad and the walker itself, and then the bottom side of the elevator has a few lights to help troopers identify it in low light situations. And there's also a few more lights on the back side of the walker. And before we wrap it up, the last play feature that I completely forgot to talk about, a fire extinguisher and a storage crate in both corners of the trooper area. But with that, that pretty much covers the entire AT-OCT. As always, I have PDF building instructions for this alternate build available on my Patreon page right now. Let me know your thoughts on the AT-OCT down in the comments below. This alternate build turned out better than I ever imagined in the beginning. I never thought I was going to create such a beast of a walker, but I'm absolutely in love with it. And the official number for how many troopers the AT-OT can carry in-universe is kind of up in the air, but the general consensus of the community is that it's somewhere around 34. So with my walker having 36 total, I'd call that more than a success. And if you still need to buy a few AT-TEs to get this done, consider buying them through my affiliate link in the description down below. And as always, if you have any suggestions for any future alternate builds or mods, feel free to drop those down in the comments below as well. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.